This is Billa Rajendra, Government Degree College, District Pedagogy. Now, I'm going to discuss about the question tags in our English language. Question tags are nothing but they're not different from the language. They are also part of the language. As we all know that there are some kinds of sentences in English language. Basically, there are four kinds of sentences in English language. They are affirmative, which also called as declarative sentences, and second category is imperative sentences. Then the third category is interrogative sentences, and the fourth category is exclamatory sentences. Now we are going to discuss about the kinds of sentences. Means first one, when we if we want to say that a sentence is a combination of some words, and the combination has to be, as you know that there are some kinds of sentences which cannot be formed in a in English language, that is acceptable manner of the English language speakers. So that's what we can say, that in Telugu we can say that we can change the words into in their positions. Okay, in Telugu language we can change the words of their position, but in English language we cannot change it. So there are certain rules and regulations to frame sentences. So as we know that declarative sentences, which may also called as affirmative sentences, they are also called as statements. Statements means the statement which can have declares something. It means a sentence which can declare something that can be called as a statement. Normally, the statement sentences, declarative sentences, begins with a capital letter, ends with full stop, and language is what we can say, that language is meant for communication. So here, for communicating people, just for the transformation of information, we are speaking the language. So the English language speaker has to accept their English. The speaker who is speaking the language is accepted by the listeners first. So that's the language. So in normal way, we can say that parts of speeches are most important for the speaker of English language. And as we know that they are noun, verb, adverb, adjective, conjunction, interjection, and we all know that these simple things. But even though when we are framing sentences, it's all most important thing that we can fix, and there should be a concord. Concord means concord is a word which can we say that the subject or verb agreement, and subject has to agree. For suppose if we are speaking a sentence in a singular way, she is a girl, and if we are speaking it as a she or a girl, she or a girl is a wrong sentence, because she is a pronoun which can be said in a singular noun, singular pronoun. So singular pronoun should be always followed is for the present tense. As we know, the present tense is, and for plural sense we can use are, and it goes on like that. It's all what we can say, that subject verb agreement. So then, when we move on to the next our topic about the declarative sentences which can have complete meaning, and which begins with a capital letter, ends with full stop, and there is no these sentences are called independent sentences also. So all the kind of independent sentence may have to begin with the capital letter, ends with full stop. They are all called declarative sentences. Next, we will move on to the topic of the imperative sentences. Imperative sentences means all the commands and the requests or comes under the category of imperative sentences. And all these imperative sentences may be called as close the door, please tell me the time, please give me a glass of water. Like this, we can say that the imperative sentences are there. Then, when we move on to the next category of sentences, interrogative sentences. So, interrogative sentences means almost all we can say that there are, while we are learning at early age of the sentences of the English language, we will learn about, we have been learned. That means we were learned about the sentences of interrogatives in positive sentence as a negative sentence. Positive sentence and negative sentence. That means if we move on to the positive sentence, see, simply we can say that it is a car. It is a car. It is a sentence which we can say that a declarative sentence, and even though it is in the positive sense, it can be said that positive sentence. It's not a car. It's not a car is which is also declarative sentence, but it cannot be a positive sentence. Why? Because we are showing it as not here. So it is a negative sentence. So like that, in interrogative sentence also we can have WH questions. All the WH questions may come under the category of interrogative sentence. These sentences also begin with a capital letter, ends with question mark. And another important thing is just we have to learn in this interrogative sentences. We can say that all the declarative sentences may have to be transformed into interrogative sentences with anonymous verb forms. That means, for suppose, just now we had taken example about the it is a car. So it is a car is a sentence which is said in a declarative sentence. While we are making it to interrogative sentence, just we have to follow a simple rule, that is B form is what we have to see in a sentence, what we can see in the sentence, that has to be transformed into anonymous verb form. And it is a car. In this sentence, is has to bring first, then subject has to move for the second word, move as second word. It is it. Is it a car? So we can put an interrogative mark there. Is it a car? Making as a interrogative sentence. So here it can also have the negative and positive question tags. For suppose it is a car. Is it a? Suppose we can say that why? We can say that WH questions, all the WH questions, and almost all and all the verbs with anonymous B forms like is, was, were, can, should, could, would, could, would. These are all called anonymous verb forms. We can make the verb forms. We can make the interrogative sentences with these verb forms also. The next one is next category is exclamatory sentences. Exclamatory sentences is just we know that all the sudden feelings and emotions put together in this in this kind of sentences. They are begin with a capital letter and also ends with the exclamatory mark. Wow, what a beauty! What a beauty! Like that. And when we move on to learn about the question tags is a simple sentence. So question tags is a simple grammatical topic which just we can easily learn. A question tag is a small question that ends with a statement. Try to understand once again. A question tag is a simple statement that ends a small question that ends at the end of the sentence. Question tags are used when you're asking for the agreement or confirmation. That means these are also called as yes or no type of questions. These are also called yes or no type of questions. That means tag means which is adding some more words to the main sentence, which can called as a declarative sentence. A declarative sentence which must be consist some more words and which we are making as a tag. They may be called as yes or no type of questions. And it's just like whether the listener is going to accept our argument or not. Then it's just like confirmation, yes or no. Answer is yes or no. And these type of questions, these type of interrogative sentences also made with the declarative sentences. These kinds of sentences also made as a declarative from the declarative sentence. How can we make a declarative sentence into question tag? It's a simple way. That's a we can learn. That's a for suppose we can take an example. She is rich. She is rich. So this is a statement. And when we look about the statement, she, which begins with a capital letter and ends with a full stop, she is rich. And while we are, if you want to make it a interrogative sentence, if you want to make a question tag, just we have to follow only one important thing is that full stop must be reduced from that, the punctuation mark, and it has to put comma. And then after we have to add some more words that should made a question tag. Then how can we made a question tag means she is a rich, she is rich. She is rich is a sentence and we are making a comma after the rich. After that, we have to put two dashes and thereafter a question mark. Then what we have to do means here, the anonymous verb form, that means which is this verb. Verb has to be followed after the comma. And another important thing that we have to learn from this, all the statements which are in positive, it takes the negative tag. All the statements which are in positive takes the negative statement, and all the negative statements which are all the negative statements, they take a positive tag. So positive statements takes the negative tag, negative takes the statements takes the positive tag, and this is what we have to learn. And she is rich. After that, we have to put the comma, and is is represented in the same manner as a B form is, and statement is in a positive sense, so we have to take the negative tag isn't. Then pronoun has to be repeated of the subject of the pronoun has to be repeated at the end of the sentence. Subject of the pronoun has to be repeated at the end of the sentence. She is represented with the she in the pronoun, isn't she? So if you take an example about this sentence, entire sentence as the interrogative of the question tag sentence, she is rich, isn't she? Question mark. She is rich, isn't she? Question mark. Then isn't means why we can represent it as a negative. That means almost all isn't. Isn't means it's a word. It can be said with the e is not. Is not pronounced here. Is not cannot be pronounced here. Why? Because simply we can say that there are certain rules and regulations that we have to follow. And just now I explained about some important topic, some important issues about the how we can change into interrogative sentence as question tags. And there are two kinds of question tags are there: positive question tags and negative question tags. Positive question tags, negative question tags. Like let's we look about the positive question tags about the words. They are simply we can say that are you, was he, were they, do you, should you, would you, will you, did you, have you, can you, is she, had you, could you, must be. So these are all the words which may be seen in positive. Then we can go through with the negative. Negative question tags takes aren't you, isn't she, isn't he, shouldn't you, weren't he, shall we, wasn't he, must we, can't you, don't you, doesn't you, aren't I, hadn't you, didn't you, couldn't you, won't you, wouldn't you, and haven't you. And when we move on to the simple important thing, how to make into, how to transform the sentence, how to transform the declarative statements into interrogative sentence. A positive statement always takes a negative question tag. A positive statement always takes a negative question tag. You are a student. For example, we have been seen that you are a student. You are a student means it's a statement, and we are putting a comma after that. Then we are following, that means we are looking for the B form. B form is are here, aren't. We are making it as negative, and pronoun has to be represented of the subject. Aren't you? A negative statement always takes a positive tag. A negative statement always takes a positive tag. There are simple format of learning question tags. This is the simple format of the learning. And a negative tag is here. Negative statement is here. Mary isn't a teacher. Mary isn't a teacher. And here, when we are transforming it into, when we are changing a tag for this sentence, isn't is a sentence which can be represented with a negative statement. So we have to follow a positive is. Is she? Why? Because we have to represent the subject pronoun has to be represented after a question tag. Then Mary isn't a teacher, is she? These are the kinds of sentences. And some more rules, just we have to follow. Some of the examples of the sentences, just we have to follow. He cannot lift the box. He cannot lift the box. Then we are going to change the sentence into can he, can he, and the boys are rich. The boys are rich. Aren't they? Aren't they? Like that. And some sentences some sentences they must not consist be form here. And they have to simply follow do, does, did. Do, does, did. And B form means it is represented with all B forms like am, is, or, was, were, shall, will, can, could, would, should, must, and can't. These are all the words which we can say as a B forms. If there is no B form in the sentence, what we have to do? So simply we can say that for simple sentences, for most probably we can say that for present continuous sentences and future continuous sentences, we have to use do for the tag. Do to the tag for the sentence. Do for present continuous tenses and past future continuous future tense sentences may be represented with the do verb, do be form. And almost all for the past tenses we have to follow did. For past tenses we have to follow did. Then for third person singular we used to use does. As we know that third person singular may represent with does word. So this is one of the simple format, just we have to learn about it. And when we go through with a simple example of these, why we are not able to use the be form for these sentences. They go now. They go now is a sentence is in the present continuous. So we can use they go now is a sentence. We can use they go now, after that don't they, because don't is a do is a word that could be represented as they do not go. They do not go. Do they? They do not go. It is a negative sentence, and we can put it as a positive tag. Do they? The boys like sweets. The boy likes sweets. The boy likes sweets. Doesn't he? Doesn't he? The boy likes sweets. Likes sweets. Doesn't he? And we can make it into another sentence. He ate mangoes. He ate mangoes. Did he? He ate mangoes. We can make it as a did he. And as we know that anonymous verb forms are there are some verbs should be represented with anonymous verb forms. They are is, am, are, was, were, have, has, had, do, does, did, will, shall, can, could, would, should, may, might, dare, must, need, ought to, used to. These are the words called as anonymous form. Anonymous verb form. And generally they are contrasted with apostrophe T. Why? Because if you want to make it a negative sentence, just and the pronunciation should be also in a different form. Is not is represented with isn't. Is not is represented with isn't. Am not represented with the amn't. Amn't. Are not is represented with aren't. Aren't. Was not is represented with wasn't. Was not represented with wasn't. Were not represented were not represented with weren't. Were not represented with weren't. Do not represented with don't. Do not represent with don't. Does not represented with doesn't. Did not represented with this didn't. Cannot represented with can't. Could not represented with couldn't. Must not represent with mustn't. Ought not represented with oughtn't. aren't. Need not represented with needn't. Shall not represented with shan't. Will not represented with won't. Should not represented with shouldn't. Would not represented with wouldn't. So like this, like this, they are contrasted with this. And there are some examples just we have to follow about the sentences. He is a lawyer. Then the sentence has to be framed as is he, isn't he? They are students, aren't they? She has seen the picture, hasn't he? He has seen the picture, hasn't hasn't he? They are playing cricket, aren't they? He went to Madras yesterday. Did he? Didn't he? He went to the Madras yesterday. Didn't he? He likes sweets, doesn't he? He swam across the river. He swam across the river. Didn't he? Didn't he? The boys were beaten. The boys was beaten. Was were they were the boy was beaten. The boy was beaten. He? Wasn't he? And I have read a novel. Haven't I? Haven't I? I posted the letters. Did I? Didn't I? I posted the letter. Didn't I? These are all me already I told you that these are all as we called as interrogative sentences, which must be expected answer is yes or no. And there are some certain rules and regulations that we have to follow for the making into interrogative sentences as question tags. Question tags as attached at the end of the statement to give an add force. An added force. Question tags which are attached at the end of the statements, which given at the end at the end of the statements, which may be added force. Generally, they are used in conversations and letters. Generally, they are used in conversations and letters. So suppose he is clever, isn't he? He is clever, isn't he? As we all know that there are certain rules and regulations, just I would like to explain it briefly. A positive statement takes negative tag. A positive statement takes negative tag. For example, she is beautiful, isn't she? He can swim, can't he? And the next negative statement takes the positive tag. Negative statements takes a positive tag. They haven't come. Have they? They haven't come. Have they? And he can't swim. Can he? He can't swim. Can he? If there is no anonymous verb form in the statement, do, does, did, or is introduced. They go now, don't they? She takes coffee, doesn't she? And then there are some other important words that we have to remember. Semi-negative words like little, few, hardly, scarcely, rarely, seldom are treated as negatives and takes the positive tag. But suppose seldom treated as a negative word. For example, they seldom meet me. Do they? They seldom meet me. Do they? And we would scarcely understand what he said. Could we? We could scarcely understand what he said. Could we? Little progress was made. Was it? Was it? Why? Because these are all the semi-negative words, and semi-negative words means almost all negative words. Negative words means negative statements. Negative statements always takes the positive tag. That's enough. And try to remember once again: little, few, hardly, scarcely, rarely, seldom. They are treated as semi-negative. Semi-negative words means almost all negative words. Negative words are negative words should be taken positive tag. But for some examples, a few and a little, they are all. That means few and little, if they are represented with article a, they may be taken into the consideration of positive statements, and they must be taken a negative tag. A few people attending the meeting. A few people attended the meeting, didn't they? A little progress has been made. A little progress has been made, hasn't it? Hasn't it? A suggestion that is used so let's. Some suggestions like we are observing about the sentence, about the practice test. Let's practice, shall we? And let's some sentences which begins with let's. Most of the sentences which begins with let's always takes the tag shall we, shall we. Try to remember again, shall we. Let's have the game of chess, shall we? Let's practice, shall we? And although everybody and everyone are singular, and for the purpose of the tags, they are usually treated as plural for the referred to the they, for the referred to the they. And for example, everybody cannot be pleased. Everybody cannot be pleased. Can they? Even though they are in singular, it may be represented with the plurality. So we have to go through with the plural of this subject at the end of these statements, question tags. Everyone appreciated the magician, didn't they? Everyone appreciated the magician, didn't they? Then when we go through with the next rule, none of the word which is followed by a plural noun, and it is also treated as plural and takes they in tag. None of is always in the plural, and it also takes the plural tag at the end of the pronoun, subject pronoun. None of the clerk came, did they? None of the clerk came, did they? And even though none of is a word, it can be shown in positive, in negative sense, in negative sense. So it takes the positive tag. And some of you takes you in the tag. Some of you is always takes as a pronoun for the subject is you. Some of you learning French. Some of you learning French aren't you. Some of you learning French aren't you. And from this, we would like to go through with the practicing session. And there are some sentences, just we have to observe it. They want to come. They want to come. And here, look at the sentence. There is no anonymous, there is no be form here. So it has to be represented with a do or did, otherwise either does. So it's a sentence which maybe we can see in the next slide. Elizabeth is a dentist. Elizabeth is a dentist. They won't be here, there. They won't be there. And you will be there. You will be there. There aren't any problem. There aren't any problem. That's your umbrella. That's your umbrella. Monkey can't swim. Monkey can't swim. Look at the answers of this particular sentences. They want to come. They want to come is a sentence which can be represented with the present continuous. So here we can see that don't, they is a tag. Elizabeth is a dentist, isn't she? They won't be there. Won't is a word which can be represented with will. So it's a statement in negative sentence. Take the positive tag will they. You will be there. You will be there. Won't you? Statement is in a positive. We take the negative tag. Then there are any problem, are they? There are any problem. There aren't be any problem. Aren't is printed as are they. That's your umbrella, isn't it? Monkey cannot swim. Can they? Thank you. From this, I would like to conclude my session.